Aloha, it's Robert Stellick with Blue Planet, and I'm here with
Armie Armstrong in Raglan. You!
Yeah, so we're here. I've been here just on a family vacation, and really cool to hook up with Andrew from Armstrong Foils, and letting me use a foil. It took me out on the boat. We went to a really cool surf spot out just up the coast here. It was kind of dumping surf, so it was kind of hard for me to foil there, but so I had fun, got some fast waves, and then the next day I went out to Manu Bay and caught like just some small little shoulders over there. That was a lot of fun. But it was just cool to get out on the boat, and he was like fishing, catching a couple snappers and all that kind of stuff. So, and today Armie came over from Auckland. So yeah, so Armie, tell me a little bit about Armstrong Foils, the history. How did you get started? I mean, what made you start making foils, I guess?
Well, I guess the journey began when we were getting into kite foiling quite a few years ago, and pretty much everything was breaking. So we just wanted to make something that wouldn't break. You know, that was step one, because I'm quite a thrasher for gear, and so everything we tried was breaking. So it's like, okay, well, let's try and make something that doesn't break, and you know, I don't know, 6 years later we're still going, so we'll carry on.
So you actually started making kite foils first, or is it you were making like a multi-purpose foil? Or?
Well, pretty much we had a kite foil that was breaking all the time, so we were fixing it, and then we made wings for it, and they worked pretty well. And so it's like, okay, well, let's make the whole thing and make one really strong. And so that's what we've really focused on, and that's why we're using the materials we're using. And then being in Raglan, I was really lucky to meet with Robbie Whittle, who's the Ozone head kite designer, and he came on board and was key in all of the foil sections and stuff like that. He's had a lifetime experience making foil sections. And then Andrew, who you met yesterday, came on board, and Bryce, our other partner, and they're all like guys that have been surfing their whole lives, or Robbie Whittle flying his whole life. And so yeah, we just like good gear, so we're like, okay, let's try and make the best kit we can.
So tell us a little bit about the construction, the design, the features of the Armstrong foils.
Yeah, so like I was saying, Robbie Whittle, the head Ozone kite designer, he was key in helping us choose the foil sections that we were using, which are pretty important. And then I guess I've spent a lifetime tinkering with boats. I grew up sailing around the world with my family on our own personal boat, and when you're out in the ocean, you've always got to fix the stuff that breaks and be self-sufficient. And so from that, you learn a lot about what materials last, and how to make something that, you know, can stand the test of time in a harsh environment. And so that's why we've used titanium in various ways throughout, and obviously we also use 316 in our screws, but the key element with foils, especially if you're using a lot of carbon, is that carbon's an anode when you put it in the ocean, so everything fizzes. Even 316 will fizz. The only metal that doesn't fizz in the ocean with carbon is titanium.
What do you mean by fizz?
So galvanic corrosion. So alloy is particularly prone to that. So when a stainless screw is going through some carbon and into some alloy, you get electrolysis between the stainless and the alloy, and things will fuse together or fall apart pretty quickly. So with the titanium, it's strong and light, but the main reason we use it is because of zero corrosion. So you could put our titanium core fuselage into the ocean for 20 years and the screws will go in and out, no worries, no grease, whatever. These parts here, which we're using now for our washers and our T-nuts, they're also titanium. And what we've discovered is that with a 316L stainless screw into titanium, it's a really nice connection, because the 316 is a bit softer than the titanium, and so it just bites in and beds beautifully. The thread, no Loctite, no grease or anything, and it won't come undone, it'll stay locked, and when you come to undo it, it just pops out again. Here we are on the street in Raglan going through foil parts 101. Yeah. So you got our little symmetrical washer with a little lug here that goes into the second screw hole, and if you want to turn it round the other way, okay, the washer's symmetrical, and you can put your screw in this hole, so you get another 20 mil travel forward or backward on the track. That's why we have the second hole. So if you want to get it a little bit further forward, a little bit further back with a different wing, you can, and the washer goes either way.
Wow, and those are also like 3D printed, those parts? Or?
These are a form of titanium construction, which I can't divulge at this time.
Okay. That's pretty awesome. Yeah, when Rob gave me the foil, he didn't have those cool washers on there.
No, these are, that's right. He's just got a demo kit. So you were just using the demo kit, not the full production version.
So can you tell us real quick about the titanium part inside the fuselage?
Yeah, sure. So with the fuse, okay, it's 100% carbon, and we've got a titanium core. It goes from the back all the way to the front, and that's tapped. So these holes here are tapped into the titanium, so the stainless screws go into the titanium, which we found is the best way to make those metals work together. And the titanium is inert, so there'll be zero corrosion on this. Like even a 316 stainless screw, after a month or two, you'll start getting a little bit of fizz because of the carbon. Very easy to replace the screw, not so easy to replace your fuselage. So this thing, 20 years in the ocean, pull it out, all the screws and fittings will work because of the titanium core. That's why we use it.
And that's why your foils are more expensive than others, right?
It's super expensive to make. You have to make huge volume batches, and it costs an arm and a leg. Honestly, sometimes I wonder why I did it, but great thing is it lasts.
Yeah. Explain why you have that shape, that hex shape of the fuselage as well.
Okay, yeah. So with the fuse, the reason we've got the tapered hex is so that the whole system's modular. You can pull it apart, change your fuselage length depending on what sport you're doing, and also for travel. It packs into the bag really easily. And then with the tapered, it fits in, and then the wing fits on the front, so it's tapered both ways. And we've tapered the front end so that we can, with our 800 wing, for example, it's a much finer profile wing for higher speed, and it also fits neatly onto this system. So that's why it is the shape it is. And also we looked at boat design, coming from a sailing background again, and this shape system is the bottom bracket on pretty much every vessel from 20 feet up to a super tanker. So the drive shaft is capped with a bottom bracket like this, and the drive shaft, the boat goes through that, and I go, okay, that's been around for forever, that'll do. So we're using a T30 Torx screw, basically because the 6-point star is just way more positive connection. It lasts a lot longer, and you don't strip out the head of the screw. So we are going into titanium, and you do want to get your screws up nice and firm. And so with this T30, they just last. That's it. Our trim fairings are titanium as well, which is zero corrosion, you know, so the shape will stay accurate.
Is this like computers?
That's printed. Yeah.
Computer printed?
Printed titanium.
Wow.
So, and the trick, the reason why it's kind of tricky is that cool. This stuff's really expensive to make. Right. So it's a catch-22 for us in some ways. Like, there are cheaper alternatives, but this is the best. And we were like, our whole vision at the start was, let's make the best quality product we can. So we're kind of sticking to that. It's a little bit crazy, but it is what it is.
Right. Okay, and what is this thing here? A big washer?
So that's a new washer that we've got for, we use this on our foot straps or the top of a tuttle mount or anything like that, where you need a washer. So that's also a titanium washer. So these little bits and pieces that, you know, no one really sees or understands, but it's actually the key to our system, really.
Right. So I read in your brochure that you also use wood. Like, is that, where do you use the wood?
Yeah, we use that in the core of the mast. So our mast layup, it's the fiber orientation is really important, and so the wood sets the fiber orientation inside the mast. And we've got some boat builders who are key guys fabricating the foils for the America's Cup team, the Team New Zealand, and so they've helped us with our layup for our mast. And so what we've done is the fiber orientation is set by the wood, and the reason we've used the wood is it doesn't change shape when we're molding it. And so we get the fibers sitting exactly how we need to. I can't tell the world how we do that, but how we're laying up the fibers, but the fiber orientation inside our mast is different to what anyone else in the surf foil industry is doing, for sure. There are some big boats out there that use a similar idea.
Interesting. Okay, so America's Cup technology right there. Okay, so do you have any new products coming out? What's new with Armstrong Foils? Yeah,
so we've just released our 1200 wing, and the 2400 wing is now available as well. And we've got 2 new masts coming out. We've got an 85, which is crossover kite, downwind, or SUP mast, and that's
pretty long.
One piece. And we've got a 72.5. So the 85 is 33.5 inches, and the 72.5 is 28.5 inches.
So yeah, and then you have that big wing also, right?
Yeah, we've got the 2400. So our full wing range, 800, 1200, 1600, 2400. Obviously depends on the speed, the wave size and all of that. But now the two masts we're really excited about, so they're one piece, fully tapered. We looked again at the the America's Cup sailing boats, what they're doing, and they're tapering everything now. So it's like, okay, well that makes sense. You need it really big and stiff where it's out of the water and connecting to the boat or the board, and finer where it's in the water. So
is that just to reduce the drag in the bottom?
Yeah, it does two things. It reduces the drag at the bottom, and it also allows a tighter turn radius, because the mast is a large fin, effectively.
Right.
So the bigger the fin, the straighter the thing wants to go. So if you can reduce that, then you can do tighter turns effectively.
That makes sense, yeah. But in terms of the torsional flex, is there a difference between the top and the bottom? Or
Definitely, yep, for sure. And what we've found is that the top half of the mast is where a lot of that wobble comes from when you're, and the connection to the board when you're feeling that, and so that's really important. That's bomber. The bottom bit, obviously you need a solid connection to all the parts, but you actually, I think you want a bit of flex in there, because it's like surfing. It's come to that stage now with foiling where people are good enough that you can get that reactive dynamic flex to actually crank out of turns with more energy, and it's just a more dynamic ride.
It's kind of like loading up your fins in a turn.
Exactly, exactly. So it's the same thing. And if you've got something that's just absolutely stiff with no give, it's actually, I think it becomes a bit dead in the water myself.
Interesting. Okay, well thanks for sharing that. So in terms of the future of foiling, and like where do you see it going? Where do you see the industry going? Do you think it's going to be a big thing, or is it going to be just a tiny little niche market?
I think it's going to be really big, because the surfers are really getting on board, because they can see on days when the surf's marginal, they can have a lot of great fun with higher speed maneuvers. And seeing people like Paco, win the Haleiwa Pro, and he attributes it to his foiling, because he thinks his bottom turn has improved heaps through foiling, because every turn is like a bottom turn on a more powerful wave. So I think it's going to grow. And then also look at people. I've got a girl, for example, who's a runner, who's never surfed in her life. She's jumping off a dock, pumping around marinas, like, instead of going running, and loving it. And that's her sport, and she's like,
yeah, that's a great workout actually.
It's like, that's what she does instead of running now. It's like, okay, who would have thought that would happen? So
amazing.
Where to from here, I don't know, but yeah, it's good fun. It's a fun journey.
Yeah. So do you think, I think obviously it looks like the prone surfing market is going to be much bigger than the stand-up foiling ever was, but or what do you think?
Maybe, hopefully,
yeah,
sure, why not?
It seems like that's where
I think both. I think at the moment both are growing, and that's cool. And I mean, the great thing about the SUP, which is the same as always, is you can just get more waves in your session.
Right.
You can get around. You can, go, oh, yeah, there's a wave 200 meters over there. Let's paddle over there.
Right.
Whereas on a tiny surfboard, well, that's more work. So both have their place.
Yeah. So, and what do you think about like going smaller and smaller? It seems like just the surfboards are getting almost disappearing, where it's just like a little platform for your feet, really.
That's right. There's some guys on the North Shore riding 18, 19 litre boards, but they surf all day, every day, so they can deal with that. And if you can deal with that and you've got a perfect spot, reef break, where the wave breaks like right there every time, go for your life. But I think in real world situation, most people dealing with a bit of wind and a beach break and shifty conditions, you'll probably, be on, I don't know, 30, 33 litres, maybe between 4 and 5 feet. Or a SUP. I mean, they're getting smaller as well, but there's still room for, a board 7 foot long if you can, I don't know, you need, in those conditions where you've got a lot of wind and wave action and stuff like that, you're not going to be getting many waves on a tiny board.
Yeah, it definitely helps to have a little bit more length to catch the wave too, right?
Yeah, and just to get from
paddle back out and so on.
That's right.
So actually, let's talk a little bit about the downwind foiling racing. I mean, I saw you last year. You were in Hawaii at the M2O Maui to Molokai race, and then Molokai to Oahu. You did both of those races, and Tell us a little bit about how that went,
Yeah,
and what your plans are for the future.
Well, obviously, Maui to Molokai is always good, and that's really the foil run. M2O is always a challenge.
Last year you broke your paddle in like 5 places.
Yeah, I hit the foil with my paddle, so that's not, you know, that is one of the things that can happen with downwind foiling especially. So that's, you know, there's just I wasn't really trained properly for those races last year, to be fair. Just too much work getting this whole program going, but it's always good to see what everyone's doing up there. And M2O, it's a long race no matter what gear you're on, and yeah, my legs cramped up after 2.5 hours of pumping, so I was like, got killer cramp. Like I was like Portlock was right there, but it took a long time to get those last few miles because I was just fully cramped up.
It was so hard.
It was right.
Yeah. Okay, so you know, for people that are just getting into downwind foiling, and like, can you give us some pointers on like how you do it? You know, I think the hardest part for me is just getting up, and then obviously then once you're up, then staying up, I guess, you know, and not coming off. So like, what can you? Yeah,
well, there's two sides to downwind foiling. Obviously, like you said, getting going, and that's a matter of go out on a really windy day to start. Don't try on a marginal day when you're starting, and also make sure when you're in a surf break on some small waves that you can connect 2 or 3 waves. If you're catching a wave and you can't pump back out on a small day to catch the next wave, you're not ready for downwinding, really.
That's a good way to put it.
Because you need that skill to connect the bumps when they die, because it's a lot of effort to get up on a bump and going, and then once you're going, you need that skill to be able to keep the pump going, and the way you do that is you keep the wing in the top foot of water. Okay, that is the art of pumping, because you get more lift when the wing's really near the surface. It's a bit like a reverse ground effect, so you need to have that skill dialed. When you got that dialed, go for it. Go out on a windy day, the biggest wing you can find and the smallest board you can paddle. That's it, and then go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I found that too, like having a longer board doesn't really help. I mean, it helps you kind of get more speed with the board, but it makes it harder to kind of pump the foil out of the water, and then also to keep it going, you know, because then you just have too much board. So I don't think that using a bigger board is going to make it easier, because it doesn't really make it easier.
No, because it's all about being on the wing. So the board's a foil delivery device, and there's a bunch of shapes now that are coming out that work well to do that, but generally for downwind, because you're not trying to go upwind and battle currents in a surf zone, you need the smallest board you can stand on and pump the foil up on a bump, and away you go.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about?
Well, maybe you'll see our foils all over the place, but at Blue Planet soon.
Yes.
Boom.
Yeah, Blue Planet Surf. We're gonna have some Armstrong foils there soon, so check them out. All right.
Cool, man. Thanks for coming to Raglan. I hope you had a good time.
I had a great time in Raglan.
Really pumping, but at least the weather's good.
Thank you, Andrew, again for taking me out on your boat, and I had a great time. So talk to you soon. Thanks for watching. Aloha.